Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie on Saturday, March the 11th, 2023. Today I want to talk about the horoscope of an actor, Alec Baldwin. Now, I know nothing about him. I don't really care about him. I've no interest in him. However, he has been in the news on and off for the last 18 months or so because he shot someone accidentally on a film set. And what I want to do is ask the question, would an astrologer have been able to warn him? So, if I had been, say, a celebrity astrologer rather than a dishevelled non-entity, and let's say he had come to see me maybe the end of September 2021, a month before the tragedy, would I have been able to look at his horoscope, even though I don't know his time of birth, just on a midday chart, would I have been able to look at his horoscope and been able to warn him about the dangers he was facing at the end of October? Now, I will argue that I probably wouldn't have been able to give him a warning, but I would have been close. I think with a bit of effort, one could have seen that something very difficult was going to be happening at the end of October 2021. But before I do that, I want to look at the stars for today, Saturday, March the 11th, 2021. So, what are the main themes? The moon is now in Scorpio, and I'll just show you the chart of today. Let's see what's going on. Okay, there you have it. The moon's in Scorpio, and it is opposition Uranus. Now, the moon doesn't work well in Scorpio, particularly early Scorpio. It's in the Via Combusta, late Libra, early Scorpio. Remember that those are the parts of the zodiac where we have the Via Combusta, and that means things can happen, like I was saying yesterday. But more so from when the moon is in late Libra. It's a time when people are very uptight. They don't reveal their true feelings. It's very muddy, moon in Scorpio. And when you have the moon in Scorpio opposition Uranus in Taurus, then you get eruptions. You get perhaps mud, and then huge volcanic bubbles of sulfurous, poisonous gas burst out of the mud and cause burning and chaos and death and destruction. No, I'm exaggerating, but you see what I mean. Moon in Scorpio is not great. When it's opposition Uranus, it certainly isn't great. And I don't really think there's anything particularly good to say about moon in Scorpio. So we have to be careful how we handle our own feelings, and we have to watch other people. They can do crazy things which may be motivated by jealousy and spite. Now, while this is going on, Jupiter is making a conjunction to the planetoid Chiron. It's a very close conjunction. The reason I'm interested in this conjunction is because I actually have a Jupiter-Chiron conjunction in my own chart. I don't actually use Chiron particularly in astrology. I don't really find it works very well. But still, a lot of people love Chiron. So I'm going to talk about this Jupiter-Chiron conjunction a bit. So Jupiter is the planet of expansion. It's showing how perhaps we can make the world a better place. It's talking about our morals, doing what is right. And Chiron is supposedly the wounded healer. It's the wound that never heals. And at the same time, the person with the wound that never heals is a person who can heal because they understand what it's like to have a wound that never heals. So, in a way, perhaps all of us are wounded at some level. We've all got our wound. It's going to be different. Each one of us will have a different wound. And with Jupiter conjunct Chiron, I think the challenge is to ask ourselves how we can make use of our experience, of our wounds, to help the world, to help people. Is there any area where we can heal? And I don't mean heal in some wishy-washy spiritual way. Healing is a word that's overused. But many of us, we can make the world a better place. How can we heal? Healing can be about doing something to make the environment better. It can be doing something to stop a tree getting cut down. It's analysing the people around us, looking at them. Are they looking unhappy? Asking them if they're okay. Just those little things that we can do. I mean, not just today. I mean, the Jupiter-Chiron conjunction is going to hang around for a few days, so maybe even a week. So look around and really ask yourself, how can we make the world a better place? Now, up there is a Pisces, and it's his birthday. Well, it would be his birthday. He would be 107 if he was still alive. And he's Harold Wilson. Now, Harold Wilson was probably the most effective British politician post-Second World War. I would have said, in some respects, more effective than Margaret Thatcher. I mean, certainly he was a more sympathetic figure than Margaret Thatcher. And as a politician, he was an expert. And I think a lot of that is connected with him being a Pisces. He knew what it took to get the British people onto his side. I think that was helped by the fact that if you look at the chart for England, if you take Christmas Day 1066, the moon was on Pisces all those centuries ago. The moon was in Pisces all those centuries ago, and so perhaps Harold Wilson, as a Pisces, was in tune with that. Now, that doesn't guarantee it. Gordon Brown, a more recent Prime Minister, was also a Pisces, and he was a disaster. But Harold Wilson, he understood what the British people wanted. It was always often said that he had great bedside manner. Now, that's often used for doctors, but for him as a Prime Minister, he had bedside manner. He could sit down on television, the British people could see him, and he could make people feel comfortable. And he was famous for his pipe. And if you saw the Netflix Crown thing, he had a conversation about the pipe with the Queen, and he realised that the pipe was an important part of his persona. But privately, apparently, at least according to Netflix, he preferred smoking cigars, but he didn't think cigars was the right image. He knew he had to be seen publicly smoking a pipe, but he knew what was going on. He was sensitive to the British people, and maybe he was also sensitive to himself. There is a story that the reason he suddenly resigned in the 1970s, it was a big surprise. I said, I'm old, I remember it. I remember when he announced that he was going. It was, no one was expecting it. And the story was that the reason he suddenly resigned was because he had a very good mind, but he suddenly realised that his mind was failing, that something wasn't right. And this maybe was the first signs of dementia. And he went on to, I think, have Alzheimer's disease and so forth. But he saw it, and he realised that he couldn't go on, or he didn't want to go on. Of course, there are other older politicians around more recently who seem to be quite happy to go on after they've become fairly demented. But no, that was an incredible, quite a sort of noble, honest thing to do, and perhaps he was sensitive not just to the British people, but also to his own feelings. Oh, another person whose birthday it is today is Rupert Murdoch. Haven't put up his picture, but he, brilliant businessman. He could see the way it was going with changes in the press and technology, revolutionizing newspapers in the 80s. Of course, a lot of people really hated him, but it goes to show that, being Pisces, there are some people like Rupert Murdoch who understand what makes people tick. He understands the popular mood, which is essential if you want to be a press baron. And so, yeah, I know I talked about Osama bin Laden yesterday, but I want to give another side, Harold Wilson and Rupert Murdoch. So now it's time to talk about Alec Baldwin. Now, I must make it clear, I don't know anything about him. I'm sure you probably know more about him than I do. So I don't have a time of birth. Maybe some times of birth are available, but the general view seems to be we do not have a reliable time for Alec Baldwin. So we really shouldn't make assumptions. We should just go with a midday chart. Okay, so he's an Aries, born on April the 3rd, and he's got the moon in Libra. Now, people who are born close to a full moon, now he has a full moon because that by definition, if you've got the sun and moon in opposite signs, then that's a full moon. Full moon people can often switch very quickly from one way of being to another. So he's an Aries, dynamic, clear what he wants, and so forth. But Libra is more accommodating and can be sensitive to other people, tries to balance, tries to make everyone happy. And I think maybe you have a certain constant switch there between the two ways of being. But I don't really want to talk too much about his personality. I want to talk about whether or not one could have predicted beforehand that he was going to be involved in this tragedy. So what you can see there, I put up a chart. I don't know if you can see it. I'm not very good at the technology. I'm still getting the hang of it. But what I put up here is an inner wheel and an outer wheel. And so there are two things that I want to focus on, and one is the fact that on October the 6th, so that would have been about a fortnight before the tragedy, before the shooting, there was a new moon, and this new moon was at approximately 13. This new moon, this new moon was at 1325 Libra. In other words, the sun and the moon were both at 1325 Libra. So they were exactly opposition. His sun at 1326 Aries. Okay, you might say, so what? It does happen. It was his half birthday, 6 months after his birthday. But what is also interesting is that Mars was tightly linked with that new moon. So you had the new moon was conjunct Mars. So on April the 6th, he had the sun, the moon, and the Mars opposition his sun. Now, you could say, well, so what? That's April the 6th, but the shooting was the tragedy happened on October the 6th. The actual tragedy happened on October the 21st. But that new moons don't just happen on the day, they hang around. So I think that this new moon primed him. The next 2 weeks were going to be an extremely dangerous time for him. not, if I'd been predicting this beforehand, though, I would not have said he was going to have been involved in anyone's death. I would have said he should certainly have been careful about arguments. Relationships could have been difficult. Dealing with loved ones. I probably would have kept it quite general, and I don't think I would have really predicted anything drastic. But then I would have seen something else, and I would have been using a technique called solar arc directions. Now, solar arc directions are an astrological technique where you move the planets one degree for every year. So if you look at the top of a chart, there's Saturn at 25 degrees 42 Sagittarius. So we just move it 1 degree for every year. So after 62 years, after 62 degrees, where does Saturn arrive at? And if we do the calculations, we see that on October the 21st, 2021, Saturn is at 2719 Aquarius. Now, this is kind of approximate because I don't have his exact time of birth. It will vary a little depending on when he was born. So we have Saturn at 2719 Aquarius. Now, the question is, does he have anything at 2719 Aquarius? And the answer is yes. He has got Venus at 2711 Aquarius. So what's happened is, with Alec Baldwin, his solar arc directed Saturn has moved forward to make a conjunction with Venus. Now, you could say, well, that's a relationship problem. I would certainly have said a problem with women. But I probably would have asked him to think about his marriage or something like that, or that kind of thing. The various women in his life. Just there could be some problems. Relationships could be under pressure, or something like that. So I wouldn't have got it right, but the symbolism is perfect. Venus, a woman was killed on set. Helena Hutchins. She was killed on set, and that Venus represents her, and so Saturn was exactly conjunct her Venus when you do this astrological technique, the solar arc direction. Now we can get more information about Saturn by looking at the midpoint, and this is what I've set up the midpoint tree. Now, when he was born, Saturn was aspecting the Mars-Uranus midpoint. Now, Mars and Uranus are often connected with violent death, with guns, explosives, and so forth. Looking at what the German astrologers who use midpoints do, I'm going to just look at this book here, which is Alfred Witter's Rules for Planetary Pictures. So if it's a huge cookbook. So we just look at it. We read through this, and we come up to Mars, Uranus, and we read Saturn. What does it say? It says, sudden stop or interruption of one's work, violent separation. That's what Witter and his colleagues said. Another alternative, Reinhold Ebertin, another German astrologer. Let's see what he says under Mars Uranus. Mars Uranus. Let's see. He says violence, a lack of adaptability, energy concentrated on separation, a heavy injury, violent destruction. So Alec Baldwin had this potential in his horoscope with Saturn on the Mars-Uranus midpoint. Destruction, separation, violent, and then this whole structure in his chart, you move it forward 62 degrees and it comes smash on his Venus. And there you have a woman getting killed on the film set. And I think the symbolism is really good there. It should also be noted that at the precise time of the shooting, which I think was in the early afternoon of October the 21st in 2021 in New Mexico, Venus was on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. Mars-Saturn is the death pair, Venus is the woman, and perfect symbolism for a woman dying, being killed. We should also note that there was a Moon-Uranus conjunction. Uranus is a planet of accidents. Moon, arguably, is another planet of women. Moon-Uranus conjunction on the IC. So I'm not saying that I could have predicted what would happen. I mean, if I'd been told that he was shooting a film where he would shoot a gun and all this, maybe I would have had a chance. But, and you know, hindsight is a great thing. But I certainly would have seen problems at the end of October. Indeed, throughout October, I think I would have certainly warned him that women could cause him problems, but perhaps not like this. But if I'd really used my imagination, I might have been able to get pretty close to making a prediction. But as I've said, I am just a dishevelled non-entity, so no one's going to ask me these kind of questions. But so it's really of academic interest. But I just wanted to give you an indication of how one might use astrology to predict these kind of things, and I hope you found that useful. Anyway, I will see you tomorrow on Sunday.